to the stage, please, Niko. There he is. So we have the Read to Lead, books that forge futures. Please, can you put your hands together for the lovely Niko?
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Niko, and I'm the Shadowy Super Publisher from Consensus Network. So nice to see you guys here. If you stick with me for just the next 30 minutes, I'm gonna teach you how to level up in the game of life. Who wants to level up in the game of life? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so let's get started. I need a clicker, actually. Thank you, sir. I forgot about that. So, just a sip of water. Well, I love these corks, by the way. It's a perfect example of useful regulation. Let's see. And now, don't be scared. Like, I'm a publisher, so the next slide might look like a page out of a book. That's the table of contents. That's because it is. Oops, let's go back a little bit. Sorry about that. So, if you want, take a picture of this, because there's a lot to go through in 30 minutes, and I'm going to do it really quickly as I can. But I have reserved 2 slots for questions specifically, because I want to keep you guys involved and kind of take the temperature of the room. So if you have any questions, remember to ask those at the breaks or at the end. And those who do ask good questions, I have some free books that you can get after the talk. All right. So I'm not going to spend much more time on this. It's 3 parts. I structured the talk as hero's journey. Probably most people are familiar with that. The idea is you start from ordinary world, and then you become something better, a better version of yourself. So my hope is, after this talk, you will feel inspired and find those ways of leveling up in your own life by using the knowledge that you have acquired or are yet to acquire. So I want 2 things to happen. I want you at least put one of the books on your list. I bet there's not a single person who has read all of the books on my list, I hope. But it's not good enough to buy books. I know everybody likes to buy books. It's not even good enough to read books. It is what comes after. It is the action that matters. So if you fail to take action after you read something monumentally important, you're missing out. That's my humble opinion. So without further explanation, let's get to it. All right, so a little bit of background from me. I'm not a publisher by any fiat trade or any fiat-y meaningful way. I'm a construction engineer that got orange-pilled eventually after ignoring Bitcoin for 7 years. Originally, I found out about it in 2010. I was in China at that time. I was mining on my old work laptop. It was just a curiosity, purely technical interest. So I was always into peer-to-peer file sharing and a big pirate. So that was kind of my edge in. No idea about monetary history or whatever, money itself. I was a huge soy boy socialist. I believe taxes are necessary and good. I didn't really believe that, but that's what I said to everybody. That's how I acted. Because if you have a critical mind, you tend to criticize yourself the most. So if everybody else is acting crazy around you, you start to think, maybe I'm the crazy one. So I tried to assimilate as long as I could, but then a day came when I finally sucked my teeth into the actual white paper and read it, 7 years after initially hearing about Bitcoin. Congratulations, well done. And I realized this is everything. This is everything that I saw, a solution to everything I saw that is wrong with the world, in my opinion, that I want to fix, that I didn't know how to fix, or if it even can be fixed. And Bitcoin was the solution. So naturally, you've heard this before, and probably happened to you as well. Got completely obsessed by Bitcoin. Started reading and consuming all the knowledge. I didn't read books, by the way, not at least non-fiction books, mostly fiction books. So I started studying a lot. And one of the first things that I read after realizing Bitcoin white paper is the Starfish model, and that's why you see the Consensus Network logo is a starfish as well. Maybe you've seen those in the backs of the books. And by the way, our book shop is right around the corner, so after this, please come to talk to me and maybe buy some of our books. So anyway, the starfish analogy was very, very powerful to me. you know the concept of anti-fragility. That's usually attributed to Bitcoin, right? So combined with the knowledge of what Bitcoin now may do, with this book, made me realize that this is the way that I have always led. Like, I was in a leading position in my fiat construction life. I just didn't have a name for it. So this book helped me put a name to something that I already did. And this is possibly the case for you as well. Like, you act in a certain way, you don't have a name for it, you don't know why. But maybe after reading the books, you start to realize there's different ways of organization. To illustrate to you the point, the difference, and I'm not saying spider organizations are bad. Obviously, centralization versus decentralization. Centralization is the best way to provide most services. So let's get that clear. But what happens if we introduce trauma to a spider organization? Let's see. Boink. Now your business license is revoked. So you're out of business, you're done. What happens if you introduce the same trauma to a Starfish organization? Boink. Now you have 5 organizations to deal with. Because guess what? They're not driven purely by profit, at least not any profit in sense of fiat. It's more ideologically driven. And this is, in my opinion, especially suitable for publishing. And maybe not everybody knows, but Amazon actually started as a Starfish organization. Still operates in a way, but it's a hybrid of centralization with decentralized elements. And I'm sure a lot of you guys also have real-life experiences of how this might work. Like, maybe you do have a mothership organization, but then there's a branch that is basically mismanaged, or it's not managed at all. If it works, leave it alone. Do not touch it. Do not put that. That was a joke about the cork, by the way. So do not poke it if it's not broken. If it works, let it be. So we're basically boiled down to efficiency versus anti-fragility. What do you want? Like, if you want really quickly a product out, spider organization, my way or the highway, probably the correct way to go. Not disputing that. However, if you want to build something that is going to outlast you and outlast all of us, then I think Starfish organization is something worth to keep in mind. Because leadership rises organically from within, via example. And this is something I realized that I've already lived by, so it was completely natural. It's not an idea I picked up from a book, but the book activated that idea by which I've always lived. You start to think in terms of being a catalyst instead of a boss. You're just there to provide a framework of mind, framework of goals and resources to somebody who wants to do exactly the same thing as you. Next slide will explain how. And of course, job versus work. Like, job is something you don't really care about. Work is something that is immensely important. Immensely. It's the most important thing in the world. All right, let's move on. So, meeting the mentor, this was another pivot point. No disputing the effect of Selfeducation and his Bitcoin standard. Probably a lot of people in the crowd feel the same way. And this is not to say that this is like necessarily the best Bitcoin book, or even very good. I happen to think it's very good, but that's my personal opinion. However, the best thing that I got from it, like I said earlier, a lot of these things I already knew inherently. I've heard of the problem of money and how money is dead and how it's created from thin air. But this book helped me solidify the understanding and the options. But the biggest thing is the Austrian rabbit hole. Selfeducation uses a lot of resources. So I recommend you go through the resources, start reading those books. You're going to see some of them in the list, which are even more important than Bitcoin Standard, in my opinion, like this one. Murray Rothbard, absolutely my favorite author of all time. There's no second best. So once I found his work, I read almost everything I could get my hands on within like 1 or 2 years. And the one that stands picture is Man, Economy, and State with Power and Market. If you haven't read it, please do. Some people prefer Human Action. I would say this is an improved version of that. If you haven't read either, start with Man, Economy, and State. And if you still want more, go for Mises. But this helped me understand the connection between capitalism and anarcho-capitalism at that with good results. Basically, how all human systems are entrepreneurial systems, how capitalism is the most natural form of development. Like, it's all nature, all about accumulating and sharing resources to attain certain ends, to remove felt uneasiness. Brilliant, brilliant work. Highly recommended. All right, let's take a first break. I'm already half of the time, so it's going to be even more brisk. Maybe just one question, if anybody has one. Oh, there you go. Hold on.
Yeah. What's your favorite book at the moment?
That's such a difficult question. Favorite how, like in what sense? But yeah, I would say that the most influential book, Man, Economy and State, the one that I'm focusing most on is the 21 Futures, which I'm going to cover in the very end. And you'll find out why if you stick until to the end. Spoiler alert, it's fiction. I'm going back to the roots. Yeah, you earned yourself a book, so you can come and get it from our booth after this talk. All right, let's move on. This one is a fun one, really fun one. Who doesn't like trolling people online, right? I mean, that's basically what it is, like testing waters. Walter Block, no matter what you think about him personally, wrote a magnificent book called Defending the Undefendable. This really helped me to become a better debater, to be able to steelman, if you know what a straw man is. Steelman is the opposite of that. So you make the best possible case for something that people generally hate, just for the sake of it, like playing the devil's advocate. However, in this book, all of the things, after you read this book, if you're a logical person, I would argue you have to agree with Walter Block. For example, he makes the best defensive case for child labor. He makes a defensive case for the person who yells fire in a crowded theater or in a conference hall. And after reading it, initially you're shocked, like how preposterous, how can somebody say that child labor is possibly good? But you have these biases and assumptions that it automatically means violence that is included. So oftentimes it is, but child labor itself is nothing more than, the kid cleaning up their room. That's child labor by definition. So there's a lot to love about this, but for me personally, it made me a better debater and to explain things and to get reaction out of people. Because if you're not being controversial, you're getting ignored. So this is a great book for that. And by the way, at our website, consensus.network, there's a blog. We started releasing really short chapters for each case from this particular book. One of my all-time favorites. Then let's go a little bit deeper. When I told you that I read Selfeducation's Bitcoin Standard, that wasn't the full story. That wasn't everything. I was actually on acid when I did that, and I didn't put the book down when I started 10 hours straight. After I was done, I didn't go to sleep, obviously. I went directly to Twitter, contacted Selfeducation, because I had a need suddenly to get this book out. And it was so clear as a day for me at that time, which is what got me started on the journey originally. Just a passion project, just wanted it out, just wanted to give it to my dad. I didn't know what it was going to turn into. Turns out there's plenty of people like me who have the exact same selfish need to get the book translated to their fringe language, right? So, okay, that being said, things of mind, what psychedelics did to me is to help to understand what is consciousness or what is it not. And basically I put these two books here together. I cheated a little bit. There's actually like 13 books in the slide. The reason is that neither of these books necessarily stands alone, but when combined, it will help you understand, destructive pendulums. Like, don't fight something and give it your momentum and energy. Something that Steve Jobs popularized is the reality distortion field, which is basically code for making your own reality, taking action, instinct action, and manifesting the reality that you want. Going to biocentrism, I started, it postulates that reality is rendered in real time by consciousness, rather than consciousness being created by reality. Reality is not a thing that exists, it's just something that manifests through consciousness. So this is a really deep dive, both of these books. Highly recommend to check them out. Keep an open mind, I'm not saying that I agree with everything or even most of it, but it did make me think much deeply, like how you can level up in life, literally, we live in some kind of a culturescape or cult. You know, it's in the word. It's a cult, any culture. Then you can wake, you realize you're in the cult. So maybe you want to do something. Then what do? Recoding yourself. Basically change your mind about something that was so obvious to you earlier. Like I mentioned, I tried to assimilate with the normie world, the socialist. Didn't work out, never gonna work out, and I realized that now. Because I started to realize that I can do whatever the hell I want. Like, I don't have to be accountable to somebody else besides myself. And then becoming extraordinary. That's the part of the path that I'm on currently, and that's what I highly recommend everybody to pursue as well. All right, so ordeal. It got really tough for me, because I'm not a technical person, to understand how Bitcoin actually functions. Another thing was difficult to understand how to boil down game theory. So these two books, again, cheating a little bit, Kalle Rosenbaum, the best, absolute best technical explanation that is still accessible, let's say, for somebody who did some math at high school, like myself. I had to read every page twice, but it's doable. So I highly recommend it if you want to learn how it works. Another one is Crypto Economics by Eric Voskuil, which helped me understand why it works. So these two books in combination is going to, gave me the faith that I know that Bitcoin is going to win. I don't know anything, obviously, but that is my belief. So we have a reward. These two books are really funny because they're both really old. Sovereign Individual is 97, and Ultimate Resource is even older, 81. Imagine that. This wonderful information has been around that long, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares that it's around. They're not going to read it. That was somehow disheartening to understand that this good knowledge has been there, but at the same time, it was like stumbling on treasure. Like, I got rewarded, I got vindicated, because I've been saying these things on my own. I've been discovering these things, like how information age sort of makes the government obsolete. They practically predicted Bitcoin. If you haven't read Sovereign Individual, and especially I would say even more importantly nowadays, when there's a lot of talk about like resources running out, it's always a regulatory issue. It's not a resource issue. So ultimate resource is the humans. More humans, more solutions, more people cracking at the issues. Nothing's going to ever run out, except for Bitcoin. And this is where it becomes interesting. And I got this book, Ultimate Resource, from Selfeducation, who is a big fan of the Julian Simon's book as well. And I highly recommend, if you can get your hands on it, read it. Whew, all right. Let's take one or two questions.
Hello. I would like to ask you, what is your first steps after you finish the read these deep books, maybe in the way to teach something and these informations others? Thank you.
That's an interesting question. What was my first thing? Well, the first thing was my mind was blown. I always think like I wanted to learn for myself to understand things better. And I believe the best way to understand something is to teach it to others, because then you are forced to condense the knowledge and really, really understand it. So for me, it was very natural to start teaching people right away. Not really right away. Like the first thing I did after reading Bitcoin Standard was get up and basically phone Saif to try to get it. But that was the action I took. I didn't know what kind of a ride I was in for. I didn't know anything about publishing licenses. I didn't know anything about publishing. I started from zero 5 years ago, 2019. And I would say I didn't plan any of it. I just simply took actions to scratch my own itch. I wanted a product, and that is true to this day. Now, just what I want is my children and my grandchildren to live in a better world that I lived. Makes me warm and fuzzy to think that 10 years, 100 years now, 1,000 years now, somebody will remember the work that I did. And that's the naive dream that is driving me forward. It doesn't matter if I attain it, doesn't matter if I see hyper-Bitcoinization. I have a goal, and I'm gradually working, taking action. I don't know what's going to happen in a year or even 2 weeks. It's too far to plan ahead. Does that answer your question? Made a book. Yeah.
Hi. Regarding education, I heard you have kids. Do you recommend any books for kids about Bitcoin? And which is the best?
That is a very interesting thing. There's a lot of children's books. I would say the children's books serve the parents first and foremost. So give the Bitcoin book, because they're really simplistic ways to condense that information. Give the Bitcoin children's book to the parents that you want to orange pill, basically. Because the parents will have the biggest influence on their kids, obviously. I'm going to go actually, we can just go straight to the next slide. Because then it's the road back. And Rothbard is the only one that has 2 titles on this list. Education free and compulsory. If you haven't read it, 60 pages, read it right now. Download for free from Mises.org. Absolutely the best condensation and the case for homeschooling, for unschooling, whatever you want to call it, just as long as you don't put them in a state institute. Or do that if that's what you want to do. Either way, all education is self-education. That was the revelation. So even if you go to an institute, it will still be up to you what you learn there, what you get from it. It just so happens that, especially in the information age, you can provide a lot of that for yourself. So when you're not hindered by a spider organization telling you exactly, not even how to think, but what to think, you can just teach your kids about praxeology. You can just show them by example. My kid already has his own little business, because he saw what I was doing. I was hustling. I explained to him that you're not going to be like, if you want to buy something, you got to work for it, or I have to work for it. So as far as I'm concerned, once you pay for your own upkeep, you're an adult. Then you get to do whatever you want. If you're living on my dime, then I have some say in what you can and cannot do. And that is a very powerful lesson to give the kids. And everything is self-education, so all you have to really do is be there, provide the resources. Same thing as starting a Starfish organization, really. It will organically grow when you just hold your ground and push forward with your ideas. Of course, without coercion, you don't have to force anybody to do that. You'll just do what you do and let people approach you. That's the idea. All right, so we're finally back to fiction, right where I started. Like I said, I didn't read non-fiction before. And then between 2018 and 2020, I read maybe 50 good non-fiction books, mostly about Austrian economics and Bitcoin. And now I'm back to fiction. Why? Because of something I like to call the mundanification of Bitcoin, which I think is key, taking the next step. And what I mean by that is what happened to internet, what happened to email. Anybody seen a movie called You Got Mail from mid-90s? Just recently rewatched it. They basically make this case that email is something special you can use anonymously, and they fall in love, and it's basically just a traditional romantic comedy. However, the point is that email became mundane. Nobody's going to make email fiction anymore. So I foresee that nobody's going to be making Bitcoin fiction either. Bitcoin is mundane, it's boring. A lot of people hate it when I say that, but the only reason I say that is because I see more. We need better stories. We need to become better storytellers. And Ayn Rand really, really nailed that correctly, because she's known. Most people don't like her because of the capitalistic views, but she's known, at least. At least you have heard of me, right? But nobody knows who is Murray Rothbard or Mises. Nobody cares. But people care about Ayn Rand. Movies were made from her work. So that's sort of where we are now. That's the next step that I want to take, which is also, incidentally, the books that I'm giving away today. You can also buy it from our booth. So this is our first fiction release called 21 Futures. It has 21 authors, 21 stories, not strictly Bitcoin first, but they are Bitcoin adjacent, libertarianism adjacent. So all these ideas are like Trojan horses that are planted in these wonderful stories. I think they're wonderful. And there will be more. There will be more ways to tackle these societal issues in an interesting way. High stakes human interest stories. Just like Atlas Shrugged, there will be another one, updated version of Who's John Galt, basically, of Bitcoin. And that's why I'm right now focusing on fiction mostly. Non-fiction is still going to be there. Citadel begins with a library, right? So and the citadel is of the mind, of course. It's not necessarily a physical place. Because to protect something that you have to make it too expensive to attack. And this is what leveling up does to you. So my belief is these great stories, there's going to be more. There's going to be another book. There's going to be full books. There's already full books that are fiction. And maybe they're not even directly about Bitcoin anymore. They're just fiction. That's just sci-fi with a new angle, because we do have these powerful technologies like the time chain, which is what the first book is about. You know, the time chain can become something good, something bad. Who's to say? But fiction gives us a window to these possibilities. Running almost out of time, so I'm gonna take a little break here. You hopefully can see the trailer. Is it gonna play automatically? Let's see. Okay, so this, I'll let you watch the trailer and explain then.
Coin fiction, where reality fractures into 21 futures. Encounter frozen oligarchs, daring dissidents, and miners buying planets. You are not prepared.
So what do you guys think? Like, is that gonna have legs? Like, is that gonna be the next Matrix? Like Matrix, but for real, with a realistic, like humans can't be batteries because you have to input more power that you can draw out. Obvious plot hole. Bitcoin can help us, and time chain can help us become more efficient and more truthful fiction writers. Just like memes, has to be based on truth. The guy who made this this trailer is a movie maker from Hollywood. Wrote one piece for the volume 1. And made this video for me just because he wanted to make it. Obviously, AI was used, but you can see the direction where this is going. All we need is those good blockbuster stories that are going to break the bank. The volume 2 is now, we're taking submissions. It's going to be out first quarter. So go to 21futures.com if you want to participate, if you want to try your hand at fiction, welcome it. You can win cash prizes as well. Another thing that I want to advertise is Bitcoin Development Philosophy, our latest release by Carl Rosenbaum, the guy who wrote Grokking Bitcoin, the best technical explanation. This is more supplementary reading to that book. Get it from our booth afterwards. Phew, I have 1 minute, so let's make it quick if you have questions. Yes, in the back.
Man, very good talk. That was amazing. A lot of value. Thanks. An important question I have for myself and the people here is, what is the best way to read these books? What's your process to be efficient and actually finish the book?
Excellent question. I believe the paperback is the quintessential way to read books. That's my belief. The reasoning is that it smells good, feels amazing, looks great, doesn't hurt your eyes. Most importantly, though, it's a platform of its own. It cannot be that you have to come to my home, take the book from my cold dead hands and burn it to deplatform the information. So there's no second best for paper book. That being said, audiobooks, great. You know, when you're jogging or doing house chores, a different way to consume. Not a better way, different way. Ebooks the same. On a flight, I'm not going to take a hardback with me or even a paperback. I'm going to take a Kindle. So these are all complementary products. But I think the original and best way is paperback books. Sorry we don't have any more time for questions. I took too long. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And yeah, hope to see you at the booth. If you have any more questions, you want to talk to me and learn more how to level up your life with the knowledge found in the books. Thank you.